Good morning, Aggies. Good morning. Thank you very much, Chancellor Martin, for that most kind introduction. Chancellor Martin, Provost McQuinn, Chancellor Emeritus Edward B. Ford, who was my chancellor, Cabinet members, Dean's Council, elected officials, North Carolina A&T Board of Visitors, A&T alums, candidates for graduation, families and friends of their soon-to-be graduates, it is a high honor for me to stand here as your speaker this morning. Let me first begin by congratulating each of you, the members of the 2019 graduating class. Give yourself a round of applause. You all are reaching an important milestone in your lives to which you're being acknowledged, honored, and celebrated today. So just being here brings up wonderful memories for myself. I remember waking up on the morning of my graduation in 1996 and writing in my journal a few promises, ones that I would challenge myself to live up to. And I look back on my journal in preparation for coming here. Writing can be such a powerful way to communicate with ourselves. So, graduates, after you've attended all your graduation parties that you could possibly attend, I want you to take 30 minutes of quiet time. It's important to rest so that you can renew. Gather your thoughts and make some promises to yourself, and then hold yourself accountable. If you do this, if you make your graduation resolutions, you would have created a roadmap that may be a blueprint for your life, for your next phase of your life. So, to help you get started, I'd like to suggest a few promises that I want you to include on that list. Okay, so promise number one. I want you to promise to continue learning. Now, you probably know someone who has said this statement. Whew, this is my last exam and I'm so glad that school is over. You might have said that. Anybody ever heard anyone say that? Yes. Okay, so this next piece, I want everyone to turn to your neighbor and I want you to say something to your neighbor. So find a neighbor. Say, neighbor. Oh, neighbor. School may be over, but learning never ends. Okay, all right, you gotta remember that. So in school, you had a syllabus, scheduled exams, known due dates, and known expectations, and at times, extra credit. All of these things were designed for you. Someone else laid out the path for your learning. But from here on out, you will be on your own, laying out your own path and writing your own course. And in order to stay competitive, you will have to reinvent yourself multiple times. I started out at A&T as an accounting major. And when I graduated from A&T, I went to graduate school at Virginia Tech. And at the time, it was very rare for an accounting major to go straight into graduate school. I was the youngest person in my PhD program, and not having work experience made things pretty difficult. I even questioned if I had made the right decision. I was studying about business, but I had never worked in one, so that made things pretty difficult. I had a problem that I had to fix. So what I did is I found my own niche. I decided to create the work experience I was lacking. So as you heard, white-collar crime and forensic accounting are my research areas. And as part of that research, I started writing to and visiting incarcerated white-collar felons and doing live on-camera interviews with them. My interviews became the work experience that I once was lacking. Soon, I completed enough on-camera interviews to produce my first documentary called Crossing the Line, Ordinary People Committing Extraordinary Crimes. Along the way, and to my surprise, I have reinvented myself as a filmmaker. And when I realized that I enjoyed merging accounting with filmmaking, which are two distinct different disciplines, I decided to get some formal training and enrolled in a film fellowship program with this organization called Cartempton Films. This program is what led me to direct and produce my documentary, All the Queen's Horses. I kept reinventing myself. I kept learning. I had to find a niche within the filmmaking community, and boy, did I ever. I screened my film in some rather unique places. Super small farming communities where fraud has happened, corporations, horse arenas, and even horse film festivals. Yes, there's an entire genre of horse-themed film festivals. I mean, let's face it, I might be the only accounting professor in the world that has won the Best Equestrian Director Award at a horse film festival. But when I look back at that promise I made to myself to learn something new, I can definitely check that box. But of course, it's not about checking boxes. Once you graduate, you determine the entire syllabus, and often the due dates. You are constantly being evaluated by multiple people, and sometimes you won't know that you're being evaluated when you actually are. And let's not even get started on the people that will evaluate you that have no business doing the evaluating. But as long as you remember that school may be over, but learning never ends, you'll be prepared. Okay, promise number 2. The second promise I want you to make to yourself is to give yourself time to evolve. It really takes time. A true win takes time to develop. It's not as instant as social media leads us to believe. So think about an airplane on a runway. For almost all airplanes, takeoff requires more than landing, more runway than landing. Airplanes usually take off at a higher speed at which they land. And if you look at most airports with dual parallel runways like Los Angeles, Chicago, Atlanta, you'll notice that the runways used for departures are longer than the runways used for arrivals. So how does this relate to you? Your takeoff will require much longer runway than your landing. Imagine that you are the airplane and that your career is a departure runway. When you often read about people, whether it's their bio or a social media post, you're reading about their landing. We live in a landing culture. So, remember the takeoff. That's where the true lessons are learned, not the landing. So I'll use myself as an example. When you read about my documentary, you'll read a lot of things, and it's won some awards, and you'll read about all of its accolades. You're reading about the landing. But what you don't know, that along the way, I was thrown out of businesses, either because of my gender, or because of my race, or just because I didn't belong there. I didn't tell you about the 13-hour days on set with no lunch, and I didn't tell you about the 75 film festivals that I got rejected to. 75 in 1 year. I've never worked so hard at something and received so much rejection at the same time. It was devastating. But what it taught me was resilience. It taught me to believe in my work and not to take no for an answer. What I'm describing to you, Aggies, is my takeoff. That long takeoff that I needed before I could land. Now, what you also have to remember is people are always watching your takeoff. Let me explain. So when my film first came out and it got accepted to the few film festivals that I did get into, the film got really good reviews. So my distribution company decided to approach Netflix and pitch to them. Now, getting on Netflix is not easy, especially for an accountant that did not go to film school. So we approached Netflix, and Netflix said, no thank you. But when my film launched on all the digital platforms like Amazon, Google Play, YouTube, iTunes, DirecTV, and became the #1 documentary on those platforms, we went back to Netflix. And Netflix said yes. They were watching my takeoff. And so what you have to remember is you need to give your career the necessary runway that it needs, and this takes time and it takes patience. My achievements weren't instant. My takeoff included turbulence, rain, fog, but then there was some sun. So I ask you all on this graduation morning, promise to give yourself the time to evolve. Let your engine fuel and refuel. You may sputter and you may change directions, but if you let yourself evolve, eventually you will soar. Okay, last promise. The last promise that I ask of you is to do something bigger than yourself. How will you leave your mark? The day I realized I had done something bigger than myself was when I became a TED speaker in 2018. My talk was about how whistleblowers shape history. And after my talk was published on the TED website, I started receiving emails from whistleblowers all over the world. One day, I received an email from a person who happened to work in the White House. And they told me that my TED Talk gave them the courage to whistleblow on some unethical activities they had noticed. And when you do something bigger than yourself, you never know how your work can touch others. The important thing, though, is to remember just to be engaged, that's work, and then work that's bigger than yourself. Okay, so there's one more promise. The first 3 promises were promises that I wanted you to make to yourself. This last promise is a promise I want you to make to me. When graduation is over, I want you to promise me that you will find your family or your village and take a picture with them. And if you decide to post this picture, please tag me at Kelly R. Pope, and I'll tell you why. It will mean so much to me. I opened my talk this morning saying that I remember my graduation, and I told you that I had wonderful memories from graduation. Candidly, I have mixed emotions about graduation. So much so that it wasn't really easy getting up and being here this morning. I remember where I was sitting. College of Business, where are you out there? Okay. I remember where I was sitting. I remember where my parents were sitting. I can even close my eyes and remember what my mother was wearing. They were so proud. We were all so excited. For my first graduation, my parents were here to cheer me on. But by my second graduation from graduate school, both my parents had died. My mother died from stage 4 breast cancer 6 weeks after I graduated from A&T. And as crazy as this may sound, we didn't know she had stage 4 breast cancer. She didn't tell anyone. She would tell us that she was tired and she was trying a new diet and that's why she was losing weight. Then my father died 2 years into my PhD program from non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. My mother never saw me go to graduate school, and neither of my parents ever saw me finish graduate school. I was alone. Just 5 years later, they were gone. Now, my then boyfriend, who eventually became my husband, was at my graduation, but at the time, he didn't know he was gonna be my husband, only I knew that. So I had claimed him, but he hadn't claimed me yet. You guys understand what I'm saying? Okay. But seriously, in a flash, my village of origin was gone. And since my mother's appearance was changing, she didn't allow us to take any pictures. So I don't have any pictures from graduation with my mother, only my memories. So promise me that you will cherish these memories with your family and those who helped you get here. Take heed to all the promises we discussed today. Continue to learn, give yourself time to evolve, do something bigger than yourself, and cherish your family and your village. Write your promises down. Revisit these promises in about 3 to 5 years because they will serve as guideposts for your takeoff. And be sure to tag me at Kelly R. Pope should you post a picture because I am now part of your Aggie family too. Thank you so much for this opportunity and happy graduation class of 2019. Aggie Pride.
Aggie Pride.